Are we live, Patrick? Okay, great. Well, seeing that it is, oh, wait, we got 30 seconds. Okay. Oh, wait. All right, seeing that it is time, we will begin this meeting of the Grand Marais Planning Commission. We recognize that in the packets, if any of you had gotten a packet, there were some discrepancies between what is in the package and what are the actual rules. There were two changes that took place, was it in July? Or I'm sorry, May. That people should be aware of, that were used by Bjorklund, but were not in the packet. The two things that, in case you saw this, the two things that were not in there is the reduction in how many acres, so going from 3 acres to 2 acres, and then changing the number of units that you can put in there to match our current ordinances. So those were the two changes, just for everybody to be aware. Okay.
Try to get as close to the mics as you can.
Sure, you bet. All right, and well, with that, I will go on to have the roll call. We've got all of our commissioners except for Mr. Batchelor is not here today. And with that, I would be open to a motion for the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Well, first thing we're going
This
to...
call is now being recorded.
Excellent.
That's good news.
So scratch that. We do have Mr. Batchelor here today. So what we're going to do first is we'll have public comments, and then we'll have a presentation after that, and then commissioners will discuss at that point. We have one letter that was asked to be read aloud here, so I will do that first, and then we'll have open comments. All right, so it says, Dear Commissioners, thank you for your time and effort. Unfortunately, we are unable to attend the meeting tonight. We request this letter be read aloud. We support this project, but have a few concerns we hope you will address. We are neighbors to the west of this development. Without a visual, it may be difficult to understand where our property and the subject property is located. I have attached an aerial view for reference. The property outlined in red is the subject property, outlined in blue is ours. The green lines are platted city streets and avenues. We received the notice of the public hearing Thursday, June 27th via the USPS. The notice did not mention conditional use permit nor variance request. The 116-page packet for the meeting was available Monday, July 1st on the city's website. Hopefully, commissioners had access to this information earlier. 2 days is not enough time to review the entire packet. It appears access will be from 4th Street, a platted street, as well as from 3rd Street using West 6th Avenue and West 7th Avenue, also platted. The proposal will be privately improved areas necessary, this is a quote, sorry, quote, the proposal will be to privately improve areas necessary to access existing improved public roads. I could not find the proposed width of 4th Street, 6th Avenue, and 7th Avenue. Historically, private citizens have built their own substandard roads on platted streets with or without the permission of the city. Ultimately, property owners request the city maintain these roads, grading, plowing, etc. There are quite a few of these substandard driveway streets in Grand Marais now being maintained by the city. These properties were not assessed for the services, but more importantly, the safety of the workers, the cost of repairs, wear and tear on the equipment, and the liability of the city should be addressed. It appears on the preliminary plat that setbacks are not met for the 2 garages and perhaps Unit 21, accessible from 4th Street. 4th Street is a public platted street. It is not a private road. We think setbacks should be met for all new developments. We also believe all city-maintained roadways should meet minimum standards. We applaud the developers' thorough design and planning. Thank you for your time, Rodney and Julie Carlson. So that is our red comment. So if you would like to make a comment, you can come up here to the microphone, just state your name and tell us what your questions are or statement. Any takers? We can go on. Did you want to, Tala? Okay.
Might be the only one.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. My name is Tala Markson. I live at 211 6th Avenue West, which would put me 3 houses down from 3rd Street.
Yep.
I am opposed to this on a personal level and on a community level. First, let me say I have employed people here for the past 20 years. I empathize with the housing shortage. I was able to employ locals up until about 2015 and then had to revert to the international flow in order to stay staffed. I do, through my mother's estate, provide a long-term rental to a hospital worker and a border patrol. Without getting into it, I definitely appreciate anyone who's willing to assist with the housing concerns of our community. We do currently have 3 large units in the works right now, so there is relief coming. I think we should wait and see how our infrastructure, our septic systems, our roadways, I mean, the amount of people, if you grow, if anyone's ever played SimCity, you know where the timing and the placement. This particular area, I believe, is not a good time or place for that. The other 3 units that are going up are in areas that were not as closely currently populated by residents, the Hill, the Tom Tabota, and down behind up yonder. This will impact all of us and exponentially increase the traffic pollution, the noise pollution, just our quiet enjoyment of our homes, that why I appreciate what I have. If anyone knows my backyard, I have a very nice sanctuary, and as somebody who contends with taking care of vacationers all day long and circle the blocks downtown 5 times to find a parking spot or try to navigate traffic, being able to come home to a quiet place away from that is very, very, very important. That particular area is also heavily wooded. It's a thoroughfare for what we call our town deer. And with the wolf population, any of you know my husband, know he's an avid hunter. He's electing to not hunt because the population is so low. I know any investors with that property, that's not their problem. I recognize that you want to invest and create the value of your land. A few residential homes would be certainly acceptable, but putting in potentially 60 more people, I don't know if those units, those 19 2 or 3 bedrooms, but if the math is what it is, that's a lot of people. And as you said, you would have to, that particular stretch of 3rd is 1 lane. We already have to kind of jog each other if there's 2 cars.
Yep.
So the amount of changes that would have to happen to everybody's front yards, people that have been here a long time, and there is that balance between supporting the community that's here, the people that tough out the winters, to also, not impact them so negatively that we're growing into the next Edina
Right.
and sort of changing that atmosphere. And so I definitely support more housing, but that particular area will completely change how we are able to enjoy our homes. And I'm sorry I'm shaking, it's just really,
Totally fine.
it's a big deal, so.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
All right, thanks, Tala. Appreciate
Tala.
it. And one thing I should say, full disclosure, I did also get a mailing because I do live in the neighborhood as well. So just so everybody's aware. Is there anybody else who would like to make a public comment? Come ahead.
Yes, my name's Bruce Sloop, and I'm new to the community. We've been, one of the vacationers have been coming up here for a lot of years. And my wife and I have made the decision to transition to here. So last year, we've had a home over 5 houses away from the proposed development. Last year, we were here about 160 days. This year, we'll be 180, and we've got family there, and we're just trying to make the transition. So I'm not here during all the winter, but I don't consider myself a vacationer at this point. I'm part of the community. I've got we're employing contractors, we've got the electricians coming over, we shop at the grocery stores, we're shopping at the stores for our clothes, so we're members of the community. So that being said, I'm new to the community, and I'm not quite sure how all of this works. I would have a tendency at this point to say I support any growth that Cook County and Grand Marais have going on. I think it's great. I know there's definitely a housing shortage here, we're aware of that. My concern would be that the development that's coming in, what guarantees do they have? First off, I don't know if they're a local group or if they're from North Carolina. I don't know that. So, are they committed to Grand Marais, or are they committed to putting up houses for profit? That would be a concern, because there's a lot of issues in Grand Marais. There's a major housing shortage, and it's being addressed. It's being addressed in a very good and positive way. I'm not far from the new apartments that are going to be over off the Gunflint Trail, so we're really close to that, and I think I completely support that. So I guess what I would like to know is this corporation, this development group, are they doing anything else for the community as far as giving back to the community to ensure that they want to be part of the community? So are they, again, a couple things that I would throw out there, are they going to, if current Cook County residents become the purchasers of those houses to move in as a permanent residence, I'm guessing there's going to be a homeowners association fee. Are they going to waive that? Are they going to be the property managers of the group? What type of guarantees have they given us as community members that they're going to be part of the community and do things to make the community better, other than put up what is going to be housing that probably is going to draw new people to the community and not necessarily deal with the housing crisis we have now? So that's kind of where I stand. I don't have those questions. I don't have those answers. I'm concerned, and I just want to make sure that all those things are thought about. Again, I believe in this. I moved from Kansas City. I'm currently got 2 houses. I'm making the transition to be here probably till I'm figuring out how I'm going to move over to Sawtooth Senior Center. So I don't know. How it is, but I just would like to know. Are they involved in the community? Are they involved in putting some houses up and taking some trees down so they have a great view of, Artist Point? That's my concern. So,
right.
So thank you for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
Come on up.
Oh, I'm Todd Smith, and I'm here with my wife Patricia Smith, and I'm here on behalf of also my brother-in-law Dwayne Smith, who we're all fairly adjacent property owners to this property. We live at 521 West 3rd Street, which is right on 6th Avenue West and 3rd Street. And we have a few questions. In piggybacking off of Bruce's comments, in my experience with housing and development and building and things like that over the last many decades, this type of development I've seen many, many times. I kind of doubt that it's going to alleviate anything with our housing problem in this country. These properties are usually put up for sale and profit, generally speaking. I don't think these will be affordable housing in any sense of the word when it comes to that, just based on what I know about PUDs. Having said that, I have a few concerns, and so does my brother-in-law Dwayne. We have some concerns about, just questions. Does 6th Avenue West remain a city right-of-way? And the same question with 7th Avenue West and 4th Street. Do they all remain right-of-ways of the city? Are they going to be under the city's guidance and purview? That's something I'm not sure you guys can answer yet, if that hasn't been ascertained or not. And secondly, how is city water and sewer going to serve the development? Is it going to go up 6th Avenue West? Is it going to go up 7th Avenue West? And if so, knowing what the terrain is like around there, it's all rock. They're going to have a heck of a time bringing that in, I'm sure. And it also, the article that was in the paper, I believe, mentions a private road. Where is this private road going to be? Is that going to be one of 6th or 7th, or the driveway in between? That type of thing. And I guess lastly, what I'd like to say is, and Bruce already alluded to this, Third Street is an unfinished street. It always has been in the city of Grand Marais. We live on it, and we don't mind that it's unfinished, because yes, traffic flow is less on that street. Is that going to remain the same? Will improvements be done to expand that to a normal city street with a normal 66-foot and curb and gutter and things like that? Those are my main concerns. I don't necessarily disagree with this development. I think development is good overall for the community. However, he brings up some good questions. What else are they bringing to the community? I mean, I think we're answering our affordable housing and our housing needs right now with the 3 projected projects that we have. Those are a couple years out yet, the way I understand it. This project, I'm not sure what their timeline is on it. What else are they going to bring to the community? Because this is obviously a multi-million-dollar project.
Right.
So, having said that, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Todd.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay. Mary, did you want to, oh, wait.
Thank you, Michael.
Oh, no, we've got one more person before you, Mary.
Go ahead.
Yep. Hi.
So this is the first time I've had any access to the plan, so
Okay.
bear that in mind. My name
Surely.
is Linda Bauer. I live on 8th Avenue. Much of what has been said already, I agree with as far as concerns. At this point in time, when I first read about this, and as I hear about it more, the scale of it is not appropriate for where this is trying to go. It's not that I disagree with the plan, but, because I don't even know what the plan is really. I do know enough to know that
Okay.
you're talking about many units that are going to really impact our whole, it's going to change the nature of our neighborhood. I mean, no matter whether it's 19 or 10, whatever you've reduced it to, it will change the nature of our neighborhood. It will feel like we don't have a neighborhood anymore. That's my concern. So addressing the scale, agreeing about whether it's vacation rental or anything like that. I'm also concerned, as I look around town, for the incredibly and rapid decrease in green space. It feels more like we're becoming a suburb of something rather than the Grand Marais that had pockets of green space, which is pockets of places for animals. You know, we talked about deer, well, snowshoe hares, all of those guys. They're the birds, everybody, you know, that's a big, big concern for me. So I will, I wish that we had more access and more time of access with this. And I ask also that after we've had a chance to really thoroughly look at the plan, that we also have an opportunity to add more input. Some of what I've said may not be appropriate, but
Okay.
no matter what you do, there's a lot of units going in a strange space. Okay, thank you
All right,
for
well,
your time.
thanks for that, Linda, and just for everybody and Linda to know, we're making comments here before the planning commission, but then this does go to city council, so you'll get another swipe at the apple.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's your question?
Yeah, will you please come to the microphone and state who you are?
So I just saw the couple-page summary. I didn't see this big thing, and I didn't
Right.
know where we had access to it.
Okay. Yeah, it's on the city's website.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where is this in the process? I mean, you said, so we're doing the commentary.
Yep.
Has it not been approved, or?
Right, it has not been approved.
Okay.
It's just in the works. They're coming before us to talk about it. And
Okay.
then if we feel like it's a good enough project, then we send it on to council, and then council will look over our findings and decide from there.
Okay. Because we
Yeah.
got the two-page letter, and it sounded like they're moving forward
Yeah.
to me, so, okay.
Sorry if
Thank you.
that's how it sounded.
Thank
Yep.
you.
No. Anybody else? Okay. Mary, if you'd like to come up.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Mary Somnus, and I'm the chair of the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Jason, our executive director, Jason Hale, is on the phone to answer questions, if any should arise, for the commission members. But he asked me to attend. He's not able to be in the room tonight. He asked me to attend and express the support of the HRA for this project. I met John, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, the first time I talked to him about his interest in coming to Grand Marais and helping address our housing needs. And it's really quite wonderful that he stuck with his interest and his determination to be helpful, and here we are today with this plan. It's a big deal. I know that John and his wife have been longtime members of the Cook County community. He can talk more about that when it's his turn to speak about himself. So this project has been over 2 years in pre-development, which isn't unusual for development. And I want to just speak briefly, one of the comments that I saw, I looked at one of the social media community conversations, and there was concern that this is a group of people that are going to blow into Grand Marais and exploit the community and take the money and run and leave a mess behind them. And I want to tell you that I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe that building housing isn't really a magic money-making proposition. It's hard work. It requires a certain kind of heartfelt commitment and dedication to the project and to the community, because you want to be good neighbors. They've already proven their interest in being good neighbors by working with the Everson family to keep the parents in their home as long as they want to be there. It's a good neighbor thing. It's a good neighbor relationship, and there's not even a shovel in the ground yet. So I think that is a wrap, and also I'm available to answer any questions that I might be able to, but if the questions are hard, we need to have Jason speak on the telephone.
Okay, hard questions to Jason.
Thank you
good.
very much for your
Yeah.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. All right. Well, with that, we will go on to the presentation. Whoever would like to start on your team.
Sure. Hi, I'm John Petters, and I'm one of the people that's working on this project. I have always liked to build things, starting from tree houses when I was about 4, and some of those were kind of dangerous. I attended architecture school for a little bit, and it was pretty difficult. I left that for people that are a lot smarter than me. My family's been coming up here a long time. Colleen and I were married up here at Lutzen 32 years ago, and actually at the chapel, at Chapel of the Pines, and we had a groom's dinner at the Birch Terrace 32 years ago. We had at one point owned a place near Lutzen on Lake Superior, and when our son went to college for forestry, we sold it, and we always have loved this place. In fact, the winter, 2 winters ago, we went somewhere warm, and my wife was extremely upset because she was not up here where the snow was. So we love this place, as do many, many people. After we sold a place, we started looking for a little house up here. We like to be up here quite a bit. And as you know, it's difficult to find a home. And we started looking for lots, and we made a couple offers. And then we drove down the streets, and we wrote out little handwritten cards, and I got a call one day from some character named Tony, and he says, "Hey, I got your birthday card." And he says, "Well, next time you're up here, why don't you talk to me?" And I said, "Well, I'll come up there to see you." So I came up and met Tony Everson, and he drove me in his pickup truck. I didn't know where we were going, and we went up to the top of Birch Mountain, and he said, "Get out." And I got out, and he says, "Climb up that snow pile." And I go, "I might fall down in there." And he says, "Take a look." And he goes, "What do you think?" And I said, Well, it's extremely beautiful. And he goes, what's it worth? And I said, I have no idea. And I said, what do you think it's worth? I have no idea. So that's where this conversation started a couple years ago. And then I met Mike Roth somewhere, maybe even prior to that, and I met a few people, including Marais, who encouraged me, and I started looking at the code that you had up here, and I was kind of blown away with the thought that went into that. The idea of a person has a home up here, and to be able to add a little accessory dwelling in it, maybe to get a little extra income, or to have a grandmother live, or a relative, or maybe a worker live in, and looked at the code, and I was like, wow, I haven't seen anything like this. I've done other developments, most of them real close to where I live in St. Joseph, but I had never seen anything like that. And so I started to look at the land and the gorgeous place with all the trees, and then began to work with an architect as to, is there a way that we can preserve most of the trees and do some housing, which is crazy expensive, and maybe have part of it affordable. So here we are today, and I'm not from North Carolina. I've been up here quite a bit. I plan to own one of these places. My partner is a wonderful person who has been up here and loves the place. He is a person that's very involved in his retirement, helping small communities survive. He's a good person. We are not up here to make a lot of money. The goal was to kind of get a place up here. So that's what I have. If you have any questions for me, go ahead.
Maybe we'll have questions at the end.
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
So I shared my screen. Yep. All set? Yep. Thank you. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Benjamin Olson. I'm a residential architect, and I'm the designer of Bjorkberg Grand Marais. As Mary mentioned, the project has been in pre-development for a couple of years, and I've been involved for the last year of the process. This began with preliminary site planning exercises and learning what we could do on the existing lot given topography and the existing zoning codes, some preliminary unit designs, and then ultimately our work has led to the preliminary plat that is being considered today. I think it would be useful to introduce the project kind of globally, and then we can get into the details just to kind of give everyone an overview of what we're proposing to do here. I like to start with this quote from the great agriculturalist Wendell Berry, who says, "Good forms confer good health upon the things they gather together. Farms, families, and communities are all forms of art, just as are poems, paintings, and symphonies. None of these things would exist if we did not make them. We can make them either well or poorly. This, too, is another thing we make." And I'd just like to say that Bjorkberg is really conceived in the spirit of a good thing well made, and we want to be attentive to the overall community needs of the existing community and the community we'll be building. I won't read the introduction here word for word. We can certainly make this available to anyone that would like to see it. But in broad strokes, Bjorkberg Grand Marais is a townhome development. It's located on this rugged site at the intersection of 3rd and 6th. We're proposing 19 units, primary units that would be 2 or 3 bedrooms each, but they've been organized into 4 clusters of either 4 or 5 units. 8 of the townhomes are qualified to have an ADU under our plan, and so we could do a total of 28 units of housing. I think it's also important to say that while some of the units are market rate, at least 5 of the primary units would be reserved for income qualified buyers, and we're working closely with the State of Minnesota Housing Finance Agency to put funding in place that would ensure that those would be available to families that are income qualified in the area. I think also important to note that by grouping 20, let's call it 20 units into 4 clusters, we can reduce the overall apparent mass of the development into something that is much more like single-family homes. And we've worked hard to maintain small footprints and overall heights, and then overall massing, which has some interest so that it's not a big block development. The development will feature a private road, private utilities, a shared on-site equipment storage unit, a community sauna, artist cabins, and recreational trails. I'll breeze through some of this information, which is inspirational in nature. When we started the project, we looked at our favorite small kind of cabin cluster communities across the world. It just so happened that most of them were in Nordic countries, and I thought that that was appropriate given Grand Marais' heritage. So here's a Norwegian fishing village in the Arctic community of Lofoten, a Norwegian mountain village, Nova Scotian fishing village, another mountain village, a Swedish fishing village, etc. And I think what's really important to note here is that the overall size of these units is quite modest, and that they're clustered in a way that concentrates the development in one area and leaves a good amount of green space around it. This is an early schematic view of what a proposed cluster of 4 units would look like. They are 2 levels. They have a footprint each of 18 by 32. They're about 1,100 square feet. They come in far under the height allowance in Grand Marais. I think they're coming in about 27 feet to the gable. We could go as high as 35, but in order to really preserve the view from the street and keep them tucked within the tree canopy, we've worked hard to keep that in check. And like I said earlier, they're staggered, and this really breaks up the mass of the building into something that is much more like a single-family home. Another view in a different colorway from the rear, and a kind of aerial bird's eye view. As I said, there's primary units and ADUs. A primary unit is 2 or 3 bedrooms. That's what you see. Let's see if I can use my cursor. This would be a primary unit, and then an ADU is detached but connected by a wall to form a little courtyard in the back. And that is a single kind of like a junior 1-bedroom ADU. We won't go through the plans, but they're certainly available if anyone wants to take a look. Really modest in scale. And there are these different varieties, 2 and 3 bedrooms, and the end units have a little different window configuration, etc. In terms of site planning, this is what the proposed site plan looks like. Existing roadway here on 3rd, extending and improving 6th and 7th partway up the block. This would be our private road, Wally Circle, and private spur road, Sandy Lane. These are within the legal property boundary of Bjorkberg, Grand Marais. 4th Street would be extended to the extent needed to provide parking and access to 4 units up at the top of the hill. We can talk about the greater details of this if there are questions, but this is the proposal right now. 5, 5, 5, and 4. The last thing I want to go over in my short presentation here is what we're working with, like legally speaking, today. The 2.5 acres is platted, and this is what the existing plat looks like. There are 20 or so odd lots that are legally platted, and so in theory, each of those could be built out with a primary unit, and under Grand Marais' progressive zoning ordinance, 2 ADUs per lot. So it is a significant amount of dwelling units that would be allowed as of right under the existing plat. We would, likely have to conjoin plats for economies of scale. That would mean we'd do twin homes, and so there may be, 10 or 11 twin homes, each unit having 2 dwellings and then ADUs from there. We don't want to do this. I mean, it doesn't observe the existing topography, which you can see here is quite steep in the top. It also assumes that it's a blank canvas that does not have existing ecosystems or vegetation. And so we'd like to concentrate our development in some of these areas that are already cleared and preserve as much of the existing tree coverage as really is possible at a development of this scale. So with that, I will turn it over to the next introductee.
All right. Anybody else? Do you have another person on your team who's speaking, or are you done?
I think we're done. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, commissioners, we have heard from the community. We have heard from the Bjorkberg folks. I suspect we all have some questions. Would anybody like to go first? Stacy, would you like to maybe give a stab?
Okay. So, this is the city
Well,
streets.
okay, all right.
Okay, let's start with the city streets.
Okay.
How wide are they going to be? Who is responsible for the snow clearing on the city streets getting to these units?
Let's start with the existing driveway that's built inside of the 4th Street right-of-way. The city granted a license to Tony Everson to construct that road a number of years ago with the idea of potentially developing the top of this property at some point. That license is still in place, and what it states is Tony is responsible for all the maintenance activities that are required on that driveway. And that if the city ever needs that right away for public purpose, Tony's responsible for removing all the improvements that are in the right of way. That's a license that we've used in a number of places in town where people have built private driveways in public rights of way, typically alleys, but also unbuilt, unconstructed road right of ways like this. Maybe 30 years ago, there might have been a different practice that created some of the situations that you might have heard about in one of the letters, but that hasn't been our practice for a very long time. So what I imagine we would do here is a similar thing, negotiate a license with the developer for any of the improvements that are going to be in an existing street right away, where it's clear that they're responsible for the construction of them, the maintenance of them, the snow clearing, and for their eventual removal if they're in the way of a necessary public improvement.
So, I'm not familiar with this licensing process. So, are you saying there would need to be 3 licenses? One for the 4th Street, one for the 6th Avenue, and one for the 7th Avenue?
No, I don't. They all say the same thing. So we'd just have one agreement with one entity, and it would include legal description of all of the areas that were affected by it.
Okay. Okay. And do we, in these license agreements that, do we state certain size of roads and road depth and?
We don't, and they're private improvements to the benefit of a private property, and so that person tells us what they intend to build, and we decide whether we're willing to accept it or not. I think the question of what do you want to see in these improvements is much more appropriate for this conversation, and the license is something that would come far down the road.
Okay.
Anton, it seemed like maybe you had.
So you have-
Or you.
No, you go first.
First.
Or next.
Next, yes. I'll come back.
All right.
Do a round robin.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
It can be a conversation.
Yeah, that's what I like.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I guess that's, thanks for putting all this together. Like there's a lot of information. The stuff from MSA is very interesting. I guess a couple questions. So, I mean, I guess kind of answered the maintenance of the access on the platted city right-of-ways, so that's in the licensing agreement, that's how that would be worked out,
It would be the
potentially?
responsibility of the association, just like the private streets on their property.
Okay, so my question, I guess, kind of related to that would be, if we look at, it looks like 6th and 7th are both gonna go up a little ways until it ties into, I don't remember what you're calling that. Wally Circle. So there is, I don't know, again, like property ownership wise, but once we get past the way 3rd is kind of set up skinny with those 20 and 25 foot wide lots running 100 foot deep, once we get back behind those, the properties on either side, I guess it just seems, I mean, I'm not saying it's great for you, but like because is the way around putting the utilities up both those sides and servicing those properties east and west of the parcel that we're talking about is by running the water and sewer basically through the alley? Or what if that alley, vacated alley, were to run due south, looking at the engineering plans?
Yeah, there's no alley running north and south.
Well, there is.
I
I
mean,
mean,
when we're done though, if you approve this plat,
Right.
that underlying
Right.
plat goes away and there won't be any alley there.
Right, I know, but I guess my point was, I know in projects past, if there was infrastructure being brought up, that there was services that had to be dropped into adjacent properties so.
Let's imagine that these were going to be publicly maintained
Yeah.
infrastructure, like water and sewer lines that the city utilities owned and maintained, then we would want to make sure that they were constructed in a way for future people to connect to them. That is not what they're proposing.
So just, I guess all I'm thinking is like, I mean, it's awesome the amount of information that's in here, but all I'm thinking of is like these properties that are to the east of 6th Avenue West, right? And the property that is kind of behind the house that's fronts on 3rd, but there's that lot and 2 and I think even the back lots of Carlson. So if there now all of a sudden is a road, which is put in halfway up that city block, approximately, maybe it's not quite halfway, but whatever that distance is, now all of a sudden those are like a little bit, like, right, if they wanted to develop those or sell those off, right, like they would likely run infrastructure. They can't really run private infrastructure because it's in the city right away. So what's going to happen for access for these folks if all of a sudden now there's a project by another entity down the line that wants to tear up that road, either 6th or 7th, to put in infrastructure to access those lots, which now these are within like striking distance after their project goes in. You know what I'm saying? Like that's my, not saying I want them to like put in infrastructure to feed these lots and have to pay for that, but I don't know, maybe that's just, you can't predict the future, but.
Somebody else further down the line.
Right.
Wants to develop.
I
Now,
think that the improvements they're proposing are actually not as beneficial to the adjacent property owners as they first appear, because there's actually already access to most of the place that they're talking about building roads. There's already vehicle access on 7th Avenue. There's already a garage constructed kind of at the end of the road that they're proposing that someone's already accessing with a vehicle. So I don't think they're going to be really seriously improving that access. But the drive that they build in the right-of-way, part of the license agreement is, you call it a private road in the sense that it's their responsibility to own and maintain, but it's not private property. People can use it if they want to. So if somebody wanted to use that driveway to access their property, then they have a right to do that. The water and sewer is a way different question. Of course, if they were proposing to build it in the right-of-way and it was adjacent to somebody else's property, that makes it really much more complicated to sort out how do we deal with who should pay for what here.
that's all that's all I was kind of getting at mostly, like
Yeah.
not to throw a wrench in things, but just thinking of, I know that if I had property on either side of this, which are basically have no well, I guess I can't tell because these lines are so thick, I could look back on.
Yeah, this one
It's
isn't a
on-
great one,
it's in here.
but I haven't found one that really
Shows it.
shows any better.
Well, whatever. I guess that's one question I had, so maybe it's not, maybe it's moot.
Doesn't it look like it's going?
So what about the traffic congestion on Third that was brought up by somebody that spoke? So I know once you get past Seventh, in
It's water,
between Seventh
right?
and Eighth,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going the
that's,
middle.
it's a one-lane road.
It's past Sixth, and it's not really a one-lane road. I wouldn't say there's any way to describe it because it wasn't designed or engineered ever. It's just kind of a wildcat pavement. And it is probably not something that we would build now. I'm going to see if I can pull a quick width off of this here.
Like what it exists at right
Yeah.
now? Because the right-of-way is still 66, right?
It's a 66-foot right-of-way. And I'd say the pavement is, oh, I've got this set at miles. It's 0 miles.
Cool.
Less than a mile.
Yeah, very useful.
So, show.
Is,
Sam,
you
don't
know,
see that?
So
somewhere
that's- I
between
think that's the
14 and
water.
18
Yeah.
feet, depending upon which part you're
Right in
on.
the middle of the property,
So,
right?
it's definitely not the sort of space that you want to have two wide vehicles pass each other.
Right.
Yep.
Well, so that would be my question is, I mean, it is, I don't know for sure. If you have your map out, that house on the corner, I don't know who that is, but in the 8th and 3rd, right, on that north corner, I mean, if this overlay is any accurate, like that house is quite a ways away from the paved road currently, right? There's vehicles parked there oftentimes, but
The
looking
house
at,
that's above Third,
yes.
yeah, it's very close to their property line compared to the way it looks when you lay it out.
When you look at it,
If
right.
we were and they're here if you want to talk to them, that's the
Oh,
Hayes.
right.
Yeah, if we were to center that road in the right of way, it would get a lot closer to their house.
Yeah,
And you can tell that when you get to the 8th Avenue intersection, because the curb cuts are really off, skewed off from where the
Right.
pavement is.
oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that, you know, I'd assume that traffic would come up Fifth, but people go every different direction, right? So I know people are gonna go west when they come out, right, out of the bottom end of this for the lower section of the units. So just thinking if you're gonna come out and take a right, what does that mean? And is the city on the hook for then improving that and widening that and doing all that?
Open policy question.
Okay,
So we don't have a lot of roads that are substandard that we've gone and improved. When we do, we've typically assessed the benefiting property owners. So if that happens in the future, then we could certainly make the case that all of these homes that are using the private roads accessing this are benefiting from it. But that is a really tough thing to predict how that would go, or who would want to do what.
yeah.
One of the things that we did not want to do was to incur a financial liability for the neighbors by, putting something up that could be potentially assessed to them all around the whole property. So that was one of the reasons for going up the middle. We did not, roads are expensive, and to just come in and say, hey, we want to do this development, and by the way, you all have to pay for these improvements, that was one of our goals.
Right.
That's why we have it where it's located.
Well, I guess that's kind of leads, that's my point on this, to the west of you then on Third. If it's like, oh God, like we have this many much more traffic and that needs to be improved, like it doesn't seem fair, like the Hayes currently own it, right? That doesn't seem right that they should get stuck if the city's on the hook, which I'm not sure how I feel about the city paying for that improvement. That then part of, if the city does pay for improvements, like Mike's saying, we do assess property owners who are benefiting from it. And I don't know if the Hayes would, I mean, they'd have a little bit more room to turn their car out of their driveway, but they also would lose, you know, again, like what feels like their front yard, a good percentage of that. So it's mostly just points that I'm bringing up as I've looked through stuff and read through the packet. So does the HRA's role in this, is that part of that is looking at like funding, working with the state, and that's where like the AMI potential tie-in with certain units?
Yeah, we have, we're getting a grant from the IRRB and the HRA. As part of that, in the discussions, was, okay, you need to dedicate 25% of these units that qualify for the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency Impact Fund. So that is what we said, yeah, we'll do that. And that's why we have those, we have 5 designated right now.
Okay.
Oh, okay, that's good. I didn't see that they had that in my packet.
And then I'll let somebody else talk here, but one more question I had. So I know it's probably, so if we look at all the like imagery that we have for like trying to hit the standard of the 50% natural area, right? I can see how you've laid things out. It makes sense with areas that are already cleared where there's existing houses, that kind of stuff. That makes sense, especially on that north corner off of 4th. But if I look at the engineering plans and I look at like the grading area that has to happen, how, I don't understand. I mean, it's almost everything is being affected by grading. So is it like we're gonna take it down and then replant? That's what has to happen. It's not like we're gonna keep what's there. And I mean, I understand maybe there's a few spots, but I mean, the biggest, is a bioretention pond the same thing as a stormwater pond? Okay. I hadn't heard the term bioretention. So, I mean, that is that big wooded area that's to the west side of the property. So that's, right, and so.
There'll be some replanning for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's, just to get all the infrastructure in, there'll be replanning, and then also with the planned unit development, what happens is, I believe 60% of the area is dedicated, cannot be built on open area. So that will be an evolution of planting certain things depending upon whether it's a retention pond or, you know, where trees would be.
And I think that's my, and I'm sure John's here, right, from MSA, he
Yeah.
could probably speak to that, or if you, I mean, maybe you can as well. But I guess that's my question is like, as it sits in what we see in our visuals, we're at 44% of area right now, so we're already under, and Charlie, maybe you know. But if we're at 44% and now we're taking out that big stormwater pond, we're taking the road out of that because those things don't count towards natural area.
See, there's a difference between green space and open space, right? So
We don't
like,
use the term
Yeah.
natural area in our ordinance,
Okay.
so it doesn't prescribe
so
how
it's
it has to be.
misleading to say.
I mean, it talks
green
about what it needs to be used for. It
I
says,
thought there was language that said specifically.
road right-of-way, land covered by road surfaces, parking areas, units and structures are considered developed areas and are not included in the computation of minimum open space.
Okay.
They're not counted towards open space.
Gotcha.
The open space says it must be provided for the users and residents of the development, and there must be a dedication filed as a restriction against that property. And the appearance of it must be preserved by the use of restrictive deed covenants, but it doesn't say anywhere where it has to be natural vegetative. But I think
Okay.
that's clearly what the plan here is to try and retain as much of the trees as you can and put back when they're done.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, I guess I misread that point, and I thought the stormwater side in particular, that side of it was actually included in what they, maybe not green space, but the open space.
The open space, right, yeah.
So, so I guess that's all. Brandon, if you've got more, or anything to ask, I think that's my only, I understand the need for housing. I'm a proponent of development and especially infill projects whenever possible. with infrastructure nearby, I think that's much better than everybody having 5 acres and a septic system as far as like how we treat the environment. It is also very, very invasive to the people who are used to, right? I mean, where I live, like we had like, oh, a nice wooded lot. Well, now there is a house there that Hamilton Housing put up, right? And it's like, okay, like we have a neighbor now. Great, we have a neighbor. You know, that's fine. We live in town. So I feel like, but I also, it makes me, not that it's disingenuous, but like looking at the grading extents on that part of the engineering plan compared to like the language of like keeping things natural, like it's more of a renaturalization that's gonna happen versus a like maintenance of, at least if I'm understanding things correctly. So
I think that's accurate.
Okay.
Because it's really a challenge on that site. You know, we've done a lot of soil borings,
Yeah.
so we're working around areas that there's a lot of bedrock and certain areas have deeper soil. I mean, and there definitely will be, there'll be some redoing, so, yeah, it'll happen.
Sure. That's all I guess I wanted to make sure to
Yeah.
get out there, because
Yeah.
it does paint it as like, we're just gonna plunk these in as sensitively as
That'd be
possible,
nice.
which I know you'll try and do.
Right.
But I also, as somebody that has to build stuff and find ways to make stuff happen, like, it's like, okay, you know, so that I think is important to get out there on the record, so, all right, I'll shut up for a minute.
All right, Ben, would you like to?
Yeah, walk me through some of the setback
Yep.
potential issues that are involved in this.
With the planned unit development, you set that aside, and there aren't any setback rules. And the setback rules for this development will be what you decide based on this drawing. So that's the trade-off between flexibility and density and maintaining a percentage of open space. So in order to keep 50% open space, we give up potential setbacks and lot sizes and widths and things like that. But having said that, almost all of this development actually does comply with our existing R1 setback or requirements. There's just a few exceptions, notably the one that the neighbors pointed out in their letter, which.
Number 21, is that the one you're talking about?
The garage-type buildings that are kind of drawn up towards the top.
Yep.
I don't know whether that's a separate owned lot or what the plan is for that, but it looks like garages that are at the top, and they're right on the property line.
They're assigned to a specific unit, so if you see on the preliminary plat drawing, there's 1A and 4A, they go with.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
have to be separated, they have to be standalone building units.
Yeah, okay.
Garages for those specific units.
Yeah, and if we were just, if we were to use the strict interpretation of our residential zoning ordinance, we wouldn't allow that. But what would happen is that this whole property would be bulldozed, cut into rectangles, and we'd have 10 houses on it. So it's the trade-off, and you get to decide whether you think it's right or not.
And can you point out other discrepancies? That
If you look at the bottom units, like Unit 5, for instance, the very top edge corner of it kind of cuts into what I think the 25-foot would be, and I think both Unit 5 and 10 are probably closer than 25 feet to the south line. So all the little corners of all the lots that got shifted get inside, a little chunk of them gets inside the setback, and that's, in a trade-off of trying to have these things fit the landscape rather than just stick them on there in a big block that mix, our zoning ordinance is designed around rectangles, and that's not the way the land lays.
No, that's true. And I was just wondering, do you know approximately how many feet off that bottom edge one is, the number 5 and number 10?
I bet Charlie does.
Yeah, sorry.
I don't know that exact number off the top of my head.
If the buildings are 18 wide, it sure looks pretty close to 16.
Well, and you gotta realize too, the actual building is set back inside that, so like the building itself probably meets the setback, the lot doesn't, and maybe some of the deck / patio may not, but the building probably is actually fairly close. 'Cause that's
Oh, I see.
Quite a ways. You can see the
Okay.
little light lines, that's
Okay.
the actual building footprint inside the unit boundary.
Yeah, okay.
I have a drawing here that will show that, if we can share. This may be too small for you all to see, but the dot dash line is the property line. That's this heavy boundary. And then this lightly dashed line is your regulation setback.
Excellent, thank you.
And it shows these few areas, shared garage up top that is outside that regulation setback, this artist cabin, the corner of this unit, the deck on this unit, the deck on this unit, and the deck on this unit. And if an ADU were built associated with Unit 1, it's just a little bit outside. I mean, we're talking 2 feet outside, and it's about fitting the units into the existing topography so that we can reduce that grading as much as possible.
Sure. Okay. Any more, Ben? Okay. Brandon, did you have anything? You don't have to,
Well,
because I do.
you go first.
Oh, thank you. So, let's talk about ADUs. My reading of our zoning does not permit ADUs in this configuration. ADUs are connected to single-family dwellings. If you'll look at our ordinance, you will see that that is a standalone. It is not a row house. So in no way would an ADU be permitted for any of these units, just to be clear.
My understanding is that in a PUD, we have tried to look at the underlying, zoning, what it would be. And when we looked at it, one of the options was if we did 10 or 20, 10 twin homes, we could probably add 20 ADUs or possibly 40.
Well, again, if you're saying a twin home, that's not a thing. The only thing you can attach an ADU to is a single-family building structure.
So you know the ordinance a lot better than I do.
Yeah.
And and so I can't really argue about the ordinance. I can say that I think the ADUs are something, and we don't even know that people are going to buy them because costs are high. It's a great alternative for, say, an older person who maybe wants to have a family member living nearby, possibly have a in-home care.
Yep.
It's also great if maybe you want a family member to live nearby.
I understand all the reasonings behind having ADUs, and that those are all true.
Yeah.
But I think that in this situation, I can't see that being permitted.
Well, they're not critical to us. We thought they would help the community by having more places for people to live. So.
And I don't think that the ordinance supports that, and I wouldn't support that either.
And it's a fair read of the ordinance. I think that because it's a PUD, you've got a lot more flexibility to decide what's a unit and where it can go and how it's going to be used. Like, all those questions become a lot more flexible. And so if you did think that it was a good idea, we could find a way to talk about making it work.
Yeah.
And if you think, no, the ordinance isn't designed to allow that type of use, then that's a perfectly fair way to read it too.
Yeah.
And I agree with that, Commissioner. It's like, yes, we could make another decision, but I think our intention behind the ADU was that it would be attached to a single-family home on a lot, and that would be the way that would go. Like and to my mind, because then all of our rules make sense around ADUs. Like, how far is it away from the house? How big is it compared to the house? How close is it to its neighbors and things like that? Like, all those things make sense. It doesn't make sense in this situation. That's my take on it, and do with that what you will. The other thing is on 3rd Street. One of the things that we would like to see, that when we're doing these kinds of developments, is screening from the street. I would like to hear how things are going to be screened on 3rd Street. Like, how are you going to do that screening? It's pretty narrow. There's not a lot of space between the road and those houses, but it is one of those things that we asked for. So I want to hear how that's going to happen.
And I didn't know that everything's supposed to be screened from the street, because most houses.
Well, I think that is
It
right.
doesn't say that.
Well-
It says,
Hold on.
must be designed in place to reduce visibility as viewed from Lake Superior roads and adjacent shoreland by vegetation, topography, increased setbacks, color, or other means acceptable to us.
Right.
So I don't know that maybe you're asking the question with a word that maybe you're not understanding the same
Yeah.
way he's using it, but
I can,
that's
well,
what the ordinance says, and so you could
So
ask that.
screening, yeah, I mean, to my mind,
So
you're
how do you
supposed to screen
intend
from a
to
road.
design and place them to reduce visibility as viewed from the road?
what I can tell you about as far as
Yeah.
reduced visibility.
Yes.
What we've done in that area is on the southwestern part, there are some trees there. And if you, where those homes come down, let's see, that group of 5, okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so there, the hope is to leave on the north, it's not a big area, but on the northwest corner, as many trees as we can. I'm sorry, the southwest corner. And then the other thing that we did is we changed some of the colors that we've been looking at, so that it's not like just all white, you know, like you see it from far away. And we also reduced the height that was allowable, so that it wasn't as, you know, high up and visible from far away.
If I can add one thing to that, there's a version of developing the lots on Third Street where every lot is set back 25 feet per the regulation setback, and none of our lots have units that are set back 25 feet. They're all more than 25 feet. So we've taken a block of buildings and we've rotated it so that it is into the lot as far as possible. And that's shown here on my schematic site plan, where this hinge point is the only thing at your regulation setback, and the rest of the bulk of that building is tucked as deep into the lot as possible. I'd also echo what John said about reducing overall height. Your zoning allows 35 feet to the midpoint of the gable. We're almost 10 feet shy of that. And the overall kind of mass of these is quite small. I mean, it's really hard to capture this in a rendering or a simulation, but I would say it is equivalent, if not smaller, to most of the single-family homes in Grand Marais that were built pre-zoning code.
Gotcha. All right.
There's a lot of the improvements that they're drawing in on their preliminary engineering sketches that take place in the Third Street right-of-way, too. And a lot of that existing tree cover is in the Third Street right-of-way right now. And
I see.
we don't necessarily have to allow that to be affected. I think this is the first draft, and we haven't had our engineers take a look at this yet. And if there's a need to try to retain some of that, it's our property.
Very good. I'll toss it back to any other commissioner who would like to speak now. Anyone?
You know what?
Oh.
I just want to say, I think all the work we did with updating our ordinances and thinking about housing, I'm kind of excited that we have what we dreamt about on those big charts in that room that I thought, I
Yeah.
wonder if we'll ever see that. Well, we have a plan.
Yeah.
So thank you for putting the work into it. I do think there's some concerns about traffic,
Yeah.
but I just appreciate that you were I thought it was a thoughtful plan that you put together, so.
Yeah, very good. I would echo that as well. If go ahead.
Okay, I just have one more
Yeah,
question.
that's what we're here for.
We said in our thing that we have to make sure that we own everything. I mean, the developer has
Yeah.
ownership. And there's some question here of whether or not you actually own. And so I need some help deciphering purchase agreement and ownership.
I can help you with
Yeah.
that. We own the western half. We have an agreement to purchase the other half. We also have an agreement to let Wally and Sandy live there as long as they want. So that's how that works. The plating and stuff like that, those are some details with you and Igor and how that all works, but that's what we have, so.
Okay, great.
And raise your hand if you own the eastern half. And you're okay with this application?
Yep.
Okay. Is that cleared up?
As long as my folks don't have to go anywhere, that's the main thing. That's right. And that's, he's been on that, he's been on that forever, and that's the agreement we have.
That's satisfactory?
Okay.
Okay. Todd has been waiting to speak, and so we will let him, but in 1 second, that means that anybody else will also get a shot if they want to say something now. So go ahead, Todd.
Thank you. Being the adjacent property owner to Wally and Sandy on the east side of 6th Avenue West, our biggest concern, obviously, in this whole thing is water. Now, we already have a water problem. If you've been there recently, you saw the channel. I saw that today. I saw that today, and actually, yeah, it was in the street, so we tried to put it back. But yeah, if anybody who knows this property knows that we actually dug a channel the other day because, these heavy rains have just worked on. So we dug a channel and it's just to try and keep it out of our front yard.
Right.
My question, of course, and my concern is, what are you going to do if 6th Avenue West is going to be one of your main accesses into this property? What are you going to do for the grading on that property to control water? Because you've got a lot of impervious surfaces here. I don't know if you're going to have blacktop driveways and if they're going to be okay.
Those are great questions, and John Loy we spent a lot of time looking exactly at what you're talking about. Maybe if we could.
John is our civil engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think
He's on the line.
yeah, if we can add him in.
Yeah, that would be,
Those are very.
it's my biggest concern, obviously, because we're the adjacent property
Yep,
owner. And
yep.
water has been an issue. We just moved in there this spring, and it was my wife's mother's house forever. And we just bought it from the other siblings and moved in there this spring after we sold our other house. So our concern is the future.
Sure.
What's happening
Yep.
here, what's
There's
good.
a lot of water coming down.
There is a lot of water always coming down the hill because it's
Yeah.
all rock.
All right. Well, it sounds like we do have somebody who can speak to that on the line, so maybe we'll have them jump in.
That's Igor. That's
So I'm John from MSA. I think I'm the guy that you want to hear from.
Okay.
So there's a state statute that anyone that makes improvements or changes to their property can't negatively impact anyone downstream of them. So that's rule number one. That being said, there's lots of different ways to handle that situation. I've worked with LHB a lot on site design. I understand where they're going to be coming from when they review how the stormwater is going to work. And I think we've addressed the concerns that the runoff might present to people. We've graded everything generally to go into those storm ponds or into road ditches. We've added a lot of big rock, riprap it's called, at the discharge points to try to spread out the flow so it isn't like a point discharge. So discharge is similar to how it does currently, where it spreads out over the ground. All the houses are connected to the storm system so that there's no additional runoff. There's no additional runoff from any of the houses relative to what runs off the site now. And that's the whole point of the ponds.
So you're saying gutters are going to be attached, so there won't be the impervious surface
Right, no, that's.
question? The gutters are running into the storm drains themselves, that'll alleviate a lot of that.
Okay.
There's a copy of these drawings in the packet too, if you want to look at it.
Yeah.
Is there, okay, yeah, I got it.
All right.
I just, obviously, we can't can't help but restate my concern with Sixth Avenue West, being what it is right now and knowing that it's solid rock and it's going to be a challenge, shall we say, to handle the water coming off that hill, because that entire hill slopes towards my property.
Got it.
And we're trying to control it now. I have ideas in my head how to keep it out of my yard, just the rainfalls. And
All right.
if there's a way to alleviate that we could work together, I'd be more than glad to look at it.
All right, that sounds good, Todd. Thank you so much. And since Todd's broken the rules already, does anybody else want to say anything before we move on? All right, we have a gentleman back here. Please state your name and come on up. Or come on up, state your name.
Yeah, my name is Ted Bell. I'm property owner at 313 Fifth, so my second lot behind me backs up to this. And I want to know, have you thought about how many empty lots there are running down the middle of theoretical 6th Street, and how much exposure there could be for additional units? And all of a sudden, we've got this community growing up the middle of 5th and whatever it is, 8th. That could be entirely different than what our city is today. I'm a part-time resident. I guess I could be called a vacationer. My wife is retired and stays up here a lot, and I plan on retiring here as soon as I can find somebody to buy a canoe company, so, which is what I do for a living. So anyway, that's my concern. Also, the addition of 6 going up will, our property and Janet's property and Slade's property all will back up to that. So to me, that being a private road is a little bit of a concern for us as well.
All right.
So,
thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. All right, commissioners, we have heard a lot today from everybody. We've read quite a bit. I think most of us know this property.
I guess I'd maybe
Yeah.
quick before whatever's going to happen next, I'd say to, well, I'm sorry, Mr. Bell, Ted. So that kind of goes back to my previous comments about like us like opening up the idea with this project opening up 6th. I mean, it would change, but it's if you go 2 blocks over, that's how every city block is set up. That's how it's been platted since 1917 to be that way, right? And for whatever reason, my guess is ledge rock, the topography is why 6th never went up above 3rd, why 7th never went up above 3rd, and why 3rd is substandard as it is, because there's no infrastructure running through between 8th and 7th. So I agree with you like wholeheartedly that like my guess is that that's what happens kind of in infill, right? Like you see something happen and there's the first step in, right? And so it's like, well, now what's the next step, right? And that might feel uncomfortable for you right now because literally it is in your backyard, but currently your back lot is, I mean, it's street facing, right? It's just because that never got developed in the previous 100 and whatever years. So, yeah, I mean, that's where I was going with like what's going to happen with infrastructure. Like, are we going to push infrastructure? Is there going to be this like desire for these properties that are east and west of this that are mostly, short of Todd's, vacant currently, not, right, they're owned, right, but they don't have housing on them. Like, are those going to be the next spots for infill development? And likely so. And I would assume that this group is comfortable with that because that's why they're doing what they're trying to do, is to create housing. And it changes it, right? It changes it. It's the density. So, yeah. Also, John kind of mentioned it, but like I'm pretty positive, Charlie knows this, I'm sure too, but like with the stormwater management plan that's in place and what MSA has, so like they're, I think, ahead of the curve as far as showing this like right now to us. I mean, I guess it's not like really a preliminary plat, but like they've got a lot of work into this
Yeah.
right now.
We can see
So
that.
the way that like stormwater management plan works is that the water coming off of the property post-development can't exceed what's coming off the property as it sits right now, if that makes sense. So that's the retention ponds, that's what the management and the grading is all about. So, yeah, anyways.
Okay.
I have a question.
Great.
Are we approving the plan presented to us exactly as it is currently being presented to us? Or is this plan still in flux if we approve development?
Yes.
Okay.
So what you're being asked to approve tonight is two things. A conditional use permit, which would allow the planned unit development, and the preliminary plat that they've presented. So both of those things you're approving as they are presenting them precisely tonight. However, because it's a preliminary plat, there could potentially be minor changes to that before it gets to the final plat before we're done. And so what happens in a typical plat for us, because now we've done 1 million of them after 25 years of never doing any of them, is that we approve the preliminary plat and then we're entering into a development agreement with the developer to understand how the infrastructure is going to be actually constructed. And then the infrastructure is probably actually going to be constructed before they come back and do the final plat and sell units. And there's a lot of potential changes that can occur between now and then, but they won't be drastically different than what you're looking at tonight.
Okay.
All right. With that, commissioners, does anybody have a motion?
Go ahead. Question, point of clarification, I guess. So they can construct pre-final plat?
The infrastructure.
Okay.
After the development agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have the agreement in hand.
Not the structures themselves.
Yeah, right. But as far as the, okay.
The roads and utilities.
All right. And we'll see them back here at that final plat doesn't just go with the developer's agreement, doesn't just go to council, it comes here first and then
No, it just goes to council.
It just goes to council?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, Mary.
No, I mean, in the wrong time. I just am curious, and maybe this is a question for Jason, if the HRA works with the city and the developer on the development agreement? Is that a role for the HRA, Jason?
I'm happy to chime in if you want me to.
Sorry, Michael.
It's fine.
Just for the understanding process.
I don't necessarily think it has to be, Mary.
No.
So the
Yeah.
issues that we're going to address in our development agreement are about the construction of the improvements.
Okay.
You'll
It's
probably
not-
have your own that addresses different issues
separate.
about what
Okay.
they need to do to qualify for the assistance you're going
The
to provide.
assistance. Okay, all right. Very good for everyone to understand the process.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Mary.
All right, well,
You have a motion for us? Yeah, I can gin one up if you like. But
yeah, I appreciate the work that's gone into this. I do completely understand hesitation and reluctance and maybe even the not excitedness of adjacent property owners to the idea of this happening. But I do think that what is ultimately, I mean, these, you guys put a lot of work. I don't feel like the narrative that you have is just like fluffy to make us feel better. I mean, I am I mean, my biggest caveat or my biggest like hangup is like those trees, like that they're gonna go, right? Like, so that idea, like that, but I mean, that part of it makes me a little bit like sad and frustrated, because of the density that you're going for. But I think all in all, what you have put together is good, and I think that people should also know that they have an opportunity to come and speak if they have issues at city council, if they have things they want to talk about,
Yep.
if they want to look at things, if they have things that they want the city to address in the developers agreement. You know, we take advice. And I guess I would, at that point, make a motion to approve the Bjorkburg planned unit development request.
Okay, commissioners, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that passes here. It'll go on to city council next
Not
week.
next, though, because.
Oh, well, yes. Well, that's
We
one.
got this little holiday coming up. We will
Right,
not have
right.
time to prepare this for next Wednesday, so it'll be 2 weeks from Wednesday at the city council meeting on their agenda.
2 weeks, right. All right, we've gotten to the end of the agenda, so we will be adjourned.
What are variants?
What about our
Oh,
other
that's right.
business?
The other
I was
business.
excited for that discussion.
And I misspoke, actually, the next council meeting is July 31st. So that's when it'll be scheduled.
Okay. Very good.
5 Wednesdays in July.
All right. I forgot about that. All right, so moving on to the next part of our agenda, because there's always a next part.
Should we give people a minute to?
Does anybody want to stick around and listen to the variance and conditional use permit process evaluation
It's
conversation?
riveting.
I don't know why you wouldn't.
I don't think the doors are locked, so they might be.
Make
What?
a great cooler, Anton.
Charlie, thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Sure. Yep.
We talked on the phone like years ago, didn't we? Yeah. What's your last name? Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for contributing.
What was your last name? Slew.
That's
Slew.
right.
Slew,
So,
okay.
you know, I'm just, all I'm saying is I'm not, it's passed. So I'm good with that. You guys know what you're doing.
Well, it's going to the council.
I really appreciate everything you guys do.
Yeah.
It's just good to the council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a lot of people in one place.
When we had to do that the other day, I was a lot of rain calls.
I don't think they were prepared, so it's gonna be.
Luckily, the basement's
Good. You're set.
Hey, their basement's not right.
As it goes to the city council, we have the city council, and that's the one of the weeks I'm gone, 31st, so it's the
right.
You guys do a good job.
All right.
Thank you.
Tough job,
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
All right. Have a great night.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Thanks for
Take
your
care.
work.
Yep.
Yep.
Thanks for coming.
Yep.
I really do.
Yep. All right. I think we seem like we've thinned out enough, maybe?
Almost.
John.
Go talk outside.
We're going to continue our meeting now.
Thank you.
Yep, see you. All right. Well then,
Wow. Cleared the room.
well, you know,
It's a bit of irony to me that we're talking about this and experiencing it at the same time. And I'm really appreciating how well this seems to have worked, although not perfectly.
Uh-huh.
And yet, how many times have we had a hearing in the past couple of years and 0 people have showed up?
Right.
We got a room full tonight.
Yeah.
I think that's really good.
yep. All right.
I also get the feeling a lot of folks just wanted information,
Yeah.
Yeah, because there were many people who
right?
didn't speak.
You're like, yeah,
You know.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
Which makes me question what was in the 2-page letter that they didn't know to go to the county website to look for more
That
information.
might be something we can talk about in this next conversation.
Right. Did you bring that up in your survey comments, Stacy?
didn't get to the survey comments.
I haven't gotten to it yet either.
Oh, really? Am I the only one who did the homework?
But that's
There
'cause
was
these
no
guys
link,
made
and then there was a
We
link,
actually
and then I
stuck
just
him in a
got
room and
forgot
made him
about
do
it.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, we've got two people.
So, what are we
Did
to
you
make
do
of
it?
this?
I did not.
We are hopeful that no news is good news, but we just wanted to check in on that first to be sure. For those of you that did not get a chance to do this, do you still want to, or do you really not have a lot to say?
I actually do wanna follow up on it, and I
Okay.
apologize for not doing doing the survey, and it got late, and then I was preoccupied, and
Would you be willing to kick this for a month then? And, because we sent this out to some other folks after we sent it to you, and they haven't had a chance to look at it either.
I think
And-
that'd be great, because
and-
I feel like sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I feel like when I got, I knew that was out there, but then, actually, I was really, like, I've tried to really go through this in a pretty short amount of time.
Yeah.
On top of, like, life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like, I didn't do the other, but I would like to, because I do think, yes, I do think that there are changes that are needed. I think the changes that, at least what I've read through, is good, but I think I have a few comments.
Great.
Go figure.
Well, our timeline for
yeah.
getting through this conversation is we want to have this done by the end of the year. So
Can we do that?
I think if we kick it a month, we still give ourselves plenty of time to go back and forth on a few ideas.
Okay.
Just a quick preview. There's no surprises in what we've learned from the couple of you that have taken the survey. And if there's anything where we think some changes need to be made, it's just about our process and when we send information out to who. So please inform us more with your responses to the survey. If there's other people you think we should send it to as well, we'd love to get input from as many people that might have a good idea as possible. And we'll come back in a month and if you give us, a couple of weeks before the meeting to kind of put everything together, that'd be great.
okay.
Awesome.
So was it sent to people that got notices to comment on how they felt about receiving the notice?
No, other than us.
Okay.
I think we've probably all received notices.
I mean, I was actually thinking, like, what about people who have applied for variances, like past,
Yeah.
what applicants, right?
Right.
Like their idea of understanding, or like their, like I'd assume.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
I think that
I
would
mean,
be helpful.
not that you have to like go way back, but I mean, there's,
Just this year.
Yeah.
there's been, I mean, what, like, I can think of like, not just the ones that we passed, but like, I think like the North
Dry.
House Folk School.
Oh, yeah.
The Dry, the guy up on the hill,
Yep.
right, is that his name? Oh, no.
No,
the one
that
we
was-
just
yeah,
rejected,
yeah.
yeah.
Was
But then-
withdrawn.
Withdrawn, the
Yeah.
one that was withdrawn a month ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that part of it is good. I think that, I think the fact that there's many people, so, that's the language I feel like when there's changes, so there's conditional use permit variance and/or, like if you're changing a plat, what's that considered? Like a preliminary plat?
Yeah, subdivision.
But that's not. is
We're not
that-
really talking about that. I think there's similar.
But I think that's something that we should bring up, because I know, like, when I did mine, I told my neighbors, because I was like, hey, are you gonna come? And they're like, what? Right? And so they were like, hey, we didn't even know that this was happening, right? And I think it's important, right?
'cause we did do that.
Because that means, like, if they hadn't gone for a conditional use permit to do a PUD there, but they had just gone for a preliminary plat to say, put 8 to 10 houses up there, nobody would have gotten a letter about a plat change on that block, on block 16, right?
No, they would have. We'll do a
Now.
public hearing for preliminary plat.
But it didn't
Not for
used
a
to
final
be.
plat. No, I think we did. I think we sent them out. The trick is, we hear this a lot in hearings, and I don't know how to fix it, but we're relying on the US mail.
Yeah, no,
And,
that's,
and our address list, and, our own humanity, and sometimes it doesn't work out.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Or it looks like a utility bill that you pay automatically every month, and you're just
Yeah.
like, whatever.
yeah.
I just passed mine on to Amanda. I said, here you go.
Yeah.
I know.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it
Okay.
here.
Great.
this month.
We all have homework. Or, well, I.
You do, you don't have
You
to
do.
do it.
Can I take
now.
it twice?
But
Can I
after
give
that,
my
you do have
opinion
to do
2
it.
times?
There you go.
Comment again if you've thought of other things.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Then I think we really are adjourned.
Oh. I know.
Really?
I know.
Now, is
I was
this a
gonna-
real thing?
It was a real thing.
Okay.
It was about how that's right. I can't remember now. I was gonna ask, but never mind.
know where to find
We'll be
us.
together next month.
Next
So, you know,
All right.
we'll have another moment.
Adjourn. Good job.
Adjourned. Yes.
Anton?